to our latest episode in the podcast series, The Bigger Picture, where we examine the non-dominant narratives that exist in early childhood education. In this episode titled, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, we examine the work of D.F. Lancy, an American anthropologist who is an emeritus professor at Utah State University. Before we delve into Lancy's academic contributions, let's first reflect on the field of anthropology and why it's not a recognizable presence in early childhood education. In the book, Scientific Influences on Early Childhood Education, Gallman asserts that anthropology differs from other scientific approaches as it focuses on observing and learning from the child rather than classifying the child using a performative yardstick. Gallman describes anthropology as troubling the normative power bestowed on developmental theory. According to Ruth Benedict, an iconic anthropologist in her own right, the purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences. Before researching for this podcast, I had no idea how radical and political anthropology could be. In examining D.F. Lancy's work, we will see how policy agendas and decolonization appear regularly in his writing. D.F. Lancy was born and raised in Pennsylvania. He graduated from Yale with a BA in 1967. The following year, he traveled to Liberia to conduct fieldwork with Paula children. He documented the fieldwork in his book, Playing on the Mother Ground. In 1976, he moved to Papua New Guinea to be part of a large-scale research project. Rather than discuss the how of the research project, let's discuss the why this project was developed and funded. When Margaret Mead was in Samoa studying adolescence in 1925, the area was still relatively isolated. By the time Lancy was in Papua New Guinea in the 1970s, the indigenous population was facing the challenge of interacting and assimilating into Western norms, i.e. formal schooling, as their country became industrialized. Lancy published a book titled Cross-Cultural Studies in Cognition and Mathematics, detailing his fieldwork as part of the Indigenous Mathematics Project. The project was commissioned to investigate how childhood experiences led to a lack of cultural representation in high-paying government jobs. Analysis of student retention showed equitable ethnic representation in lower grades, but a sharp decline in certain ethnic groups in post-secondary and technical colleges. The mathematics project was designed to determine why there was a variance in mathematical understanding in different cultural groups. In his book, Lancy highlighted how cultural practices contribute to mathematical understanding, and they provide valuable knowledge relevant to cultural communities. In his writing, Lancy noted studies done before 1975 had misleading results because of reliance on Paget's methodology, which did not accurately relate Indigenous knowledge of mathematics. Lancy found that Indigenous mathematical learning did not follow the linear pattern outlined by Paget. Lancy has written several books. Anthropology of Childhood, Cherubs, Chattel, and Changelings is considered to be his seminal work. First published in 2008, this book is credited with establishing anthropology of childhood as its own distinct field of study. The book has a bibliography of 120 pages and is considered an encyclopedia of all records relating to anthropology of childhood. The book draws on over 110 years of research in the field, making it definitive. Lancy says it's a book about parents and children, not a prescription for how to do a better job of raising children. The title, Anthropology of Childhood, Cherubs, Chattel, and Changelings, describes how Lancy divides cultural practices into the subcategories. The concept of cherub describes children seen as innocent, helpless, and in need of protection, an ideology seen only in weird cultures. Knowing what weird means is pivotal here. WEIRD is an acronym for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, Democratic Societies. You will hear that acronym used over and over again in the podcast. Weird societies make up about 12% of the world's population, and yet it holds the dominant narrative. This cherub view of children informs how we parent and how we design childcare programs in weird societies. Children as chattel refers to children contributing to their family and community. Children are valued for productive capacity, more common in societies with high mortality rates and large families. The last part of the title, changeling, refers to cultures where supernatural reasons are used to explain deviances in normal biology and may be used to justify sacrifices, abuse, or neglect. Some cultures with high child mortality do not acknowledge children until a milestone is reached. Then a name is chosen and the child integrates into family life. Having this diverse, rich book of cross-cultural practices in childhood decentralizes the weird perspective. In his review for the New York Times, Michael Erard said his main takeaway was, children are raised in all sorts of ways, and they turn out just fine. Anthropology of Childhood, Cherubs, Chattel, and Changelings was intended to be an academic reference, published by Cambridge Press. To help make his work more accessible, Lancy published Raising Children, Surprising Insights from Other Cultures in 2017. The newer, lighter version is very different in tone. The reader gains more insight into Lancy's thinking. Again, in this book, Lancy reminds the reader that weird perspective of children is not universal across the world. He discusses how cultural practices taken out of context are completely misunderstood and used to further social agendas. One such example he gives is baby proximity being championed in North American culture. Baby wearing, co-sleeping, and 24/7 demand feeding, all presented as necessary for secure didactic attachment to mother. Parenting advisors point to Indigenous practices of baby wearing and co-sleeping as supportive evidence. However, these Indigenous practices are not about baby health and security, but they are about mother's health. Co-sleeping means mothers sleep without disturbance, recovering their health while feeding their baby. Carrying the baby enables mother to return to her work. Breastfeeding acts as a natural contraceptive, enabling mothers to recover their health before becoming pregnant again. When it's possible, baby is weaned and the village takes over, other family members, and the mother returns to her usual work. This is the cultural norm outside of weird societies. Lancy is clear in his book, saying back up to people who guilt American mothers using childcare outside of their family. In weird societies, we simply don't have the same village of family members to support us. We don't have large families anymore, and we don't live in the same place for generations. Quality childcare programs fill that societal void in weird societies, creating our own versions of shared childcare, the village that raises the child. And thereby, Lancy points out that quality childcare programs are a natural continuation of the practice of shared childcare that is seen throughout history. When you look at D.F. Lancy's website, you will find links to selected articles authored by him. It's not a complete list, as he has authored over 75 academic articles, but it is a way to see how his writing challenges colonial perspectives and some established theories in early childhood education. As research for the podcast, I chose to read Unmasking Children's Agency. In reading this article, I was forced to confront my own biases about agency. It was shocking to read in the introduction that Lancy finds the agency movement detrimental to child advocacy and scholarship. Lancy goes on to describe the blurred roles of those involved in policymaking and research. In the article, Lancy speaks out against limiting research methodology to child interviews. Lancy provides practical examples of cultures where children, for various reasons, don't speak to adults, particularly those outside of their known community, which poses serious challenges to researchers. Lancy is a strong advocate for the necessity of robust, multi-method approach in field work. Part of Lancy's commitment to ongoing relevant academic anthropological study is his own role in establishing two organizations dedicated to studying anthropology of childhood. There is the Association for the Anthropological Study of Play and the Anthropology of Children and Youth Interest Group. Links to both are available on Lancy's website. Lancy's own writing comes full circle in his latest book, Learning Without Lessons, Pedagogy in Indigenous Communities. In a review of the book, Julie Spray describes Lancy pushing back against accepted weird ideas. That key knowledge must be related to children through controlled direction by adults. That children must be stimulated by play and interaction with their parents to achieve more optimal development. That formal learning is necessary and it benefits individuals and developing communities. And that children require close adult supervision and scaffolding. Take a moment and consider what I just said. Many of these assertions form the backbone for early childhood curriculum, our governing documents for licensed childcare in Ontario, as well as prescribed promoted parenting practices that are culturally accepted in Ontario. Indigenous pedagogy at its core believes children must be autonomous and self-initiated, as described by Lancy. This latest book describes children as intrinsically motivated, curious, driven to learn. When direct tutelage does occur, it's to assist the child in respecting others and to better understand their role in their community. Lancy states that westernized schooling is not without its own problematic changes and should not be idealized. Julie Spray asserts the credibility of Lancy's work as he draws on the large body of ethnography collected over the past 110 years. His work continues to challenge weird society's hold on the narrative of normal childhood. Critics of anthropology of childhood would argue that one cannot objectively view childhoods that have already passed. Old records are incomplete and adult-centric. Because anthropology is very context-driven and requires intensive field work, it doesn't lend itself to generalization or widespread application, leading to not being recognized as relevant. Lancy does what he can to address these concerns by creating a comprehensive cross-cultural anthology of childhood experiences in his book, Anthropology of Childhood, Cherubs, Chattel, and Changelings, so that anyone can reference and interpret the material for themselves. In an interview with Camilla Morelli, Lancy describes how each edition of the book has endeavored to appeal to a different audience. Through participating in podcasts, interviews, webinars, conferences, in addition to his writing, Lancy continues to do his part in bringing awareness to diverse cultural approaches in childhood. I hope this podcast inspires you to conduct your own research into anthropology of childhood and to critically reflect on the role culture plays in childhood.